Gather, brave warriors, protectors of these lands, acolytes in the ways of the ancestors, mothers and grandmothers of our descendants, stewards of the great salt waters. We honor on this moon our ancestor, the great warrior called Sulik, who ventured forth into the outlands a generation ago, and his comrade, the cunning champion of the Arroyo tribe, who together saved all of these lands from terrible spirits of sky and earth called the Enclave. And they called him the Chosen One.
Come in, Chosen One. There are things you must know. The village is dying. The signs are everywhere. Withering crops. Dying Brahmin. Sick children. There is hope, however. A slim hope that few know of. The old discs speak of an item called the Garden of Eden Creation Kit. It is said it can bring life to the wasteland. This will be your quest, if you prove yourself worthy. For that proof, you must first journey to the Temple of Trials. If you survive, come back to me. We will talk more. Our life is in your hands, Chosen One. Prove yourself. Find the Gecko. Be our salvation.
And so, the Chosen One, born and raised as the tribe's champion, embarked upon his final test to prove his worth to the village. The treacherous Temple of Trials. After battling through swarms of mutated beasts and evading dozens of deadly traps, the Chosen One faced his final test, a hand-to-hand bout with the greatest warrior of the Arroyo tribe.
You have defeated me. You are worthy, Chosen One.
Wearing the sacred suit of his ancestor, the one called the Vault Dweller, the Chosen One could now begin his quest to find the Garden of Eden Creation Kit and save his village.
Congratulations, Chosen One. You have survived the Temple of Trials. Take this flask. It is from the Holy Vault 13. Vic, a trader in Klamath, brought it to us. He may know where the vault is.
With nothing but a battered flask from the vault of his ancestor, the Chosen One set off for Klamath. The small settlement of Klamath was then much like it is now. The villagers led simple lives, hunting and skinning the rich valley's vicious biting lizards and wasting the day away drinking in her pubs. It was the Chosen One's first introduction to the strange ways of the so-called civilized lands. Sadly, Vic was nowhere to be found. The Chosen One discovered his Klamath home abandoned, and with no clue to his whereabouts. The trail for the Holy Vault 13 and its GECK had gone cold. Thankfully, and with the blessing of the spirits, it is here in Klamath that the Chosen One met his most trusted companion, Sulik, a venerated member of this very tribe and a direct ancestor to many in our village. Sulik had left the Great Salt Waters in search of his sister Kurisu, kidnapped by the bastard slavers, but instead found himself indentured in Klamath due to some unfortunate circumstance.
Slavers got our sis. Thought Vic be having information. Couldn't peep him. Got PO'd. Drank like a fish. Spirits of anger and chaos pop out, and now we have to pay some coin to make it right. We owe Maid $350. You heading south? We'll walk about with you and look for sis. You having $350?
In dire need of a guide in this strange civilized world, the Chosen One sought to help the residents of Klamath to raise the funds to free Sulik. Here, he quieted restless spirits awakened in the canyons that had haunted Klamath for months, fought off a horde of mutated beasts deep within the bowels of the city, and rescued a stranded trapper in a cave full of fierce biting lizards and burning ooze that could melt the feet of even the strongest warrior.
We and I thank you. Grampy Bones say we might find sis with you.
With Sulik freed from his unjust captivity, he and the Chosen One, aided by the spirits of this great tribe, set off to the Den, the last known destination of Vic the Trader.
We and I stay close if you promise to buy soap in next town.
The Den was once called a wretched hive of scum and villainy, and it lived up to that name. With no chief to lead the town, lawlessness, anarchy, and the spirits of chaos ran wild, engulfing its villagers in poverty, addiction, and sloth. Drunkards and addicts roamed the streets, begging to feed their insatiable desires. Orphaned children stole all manner of items at the behest of opportunistic scoundrels. And young women were traded like crops, passed around between dubious men for mere scraps of coin. But not every soul in the Den walked with evil spirits. Among them, Sulik and the Chosen One found comrades and formed alliances. The one called Mom, who it is said made the best rat pie in all of New California. Becky, an honest purveyor who would reward them handsomely for their actions in the Den. And Smitty, the kind handyman who offered our travelers the Highwayman, a mechanized Brahmin caravan which ran faster than a flaming gecko, if they could only find the spare parts in their travels. But then there was the Guild, where the bastard Metzger ran his slaving empire, capturing tribesmen and women from nearby villages and selling them off to the highest bidder like common Brahmin. It was at the Guild the pair hoped to find Sulik's sister, but on their way to talk to Metzger, found Vic the Trader imprisoned. Lacking the coin to free him, and spurred on by Sulik's great rage,
You think owning people okay?
the pair attacked the Guild. In freeing the Guild's slaves, Sulik and the Chosen One reunited members of dozens of tribes across the lands. But Kurisu was not among them. Sadly, in all of their travels, Sulik would never find his sister, nor a clue to her whereabouts. They did, however, find a new companion.
Water flask? Oh yeah, I had a few dozen of them. Sold pretty well. I got them from Ed, a Brahmin dealer over in Vault City.
With Vic-Fried, the portly trader joined the pair and pointed the adventure toward Vault City, the place where he had acquired the relic from the Holy Vault 13. And so, the party traveled east.
We be needing to have a talk with the herb superb. Let the world float by and by. We and I are the spirit of wrath. Like a bad dream.
After 2 weeks of travel and fighting off several waves of degenerate marauders, the party stumbled upon a small, nondescript village tucked away in the spoiled dust of the wasteland. Exhausted and running out of supplies, our travelers stopped to recover.
This look like a good place to sit back for a bit.
Modoc was once a thriving community of traders, farmers, and Brahmin herders. But the town was dying. The very drought which had wreaked havoc in Arroyo also cast its shadow upon Modoc, leaving its residents in despair and on the brink of ruin. But the Chosen One had his own village to save, and Modoc was but a layover. Following an unfortunate incident with the village outhouse, the party headed to Rose's bed and breakfast to rest and recover.
The wasteland omelet, that's my specialty. Hope you're hungry. I guarantee you've never tasted one like this anywhere.
Rose returned with the biggest damned omelet they had ever seen. Curiosity got the best of our travelers. After much of Modoc had gone to sleep, they set off to investigate the hen house. But they found no hen. Instead, a massive mother deathclaw. Sadly, Rose had served her last wasteland omelet. The party hoped to resupply before continuing to Vault City, but the rumpled merchant of Modoc had very little stock. He did, however, claim to have information about the Garden of Eden creation kit, which he promised to provide if our travelers would assist the town in an important matter. Months prior, seemingly overnight, a so-called ghost farm had popped up to the northeast. Row upon row of thriving crops, herds of Brahmin, and yet not a soul in sight. The town sent scouts to investigate, but they returned delirious, speaking of ghostly figures stalking the night. And the next time they stepped foot on the farm, dozens of disemboweled bodies were staked upon its fields. But upon closer inspection, the party discovered the bodies were not human, but in fact, props. Human clothing and adornments stuffed with Brahmin innards. It seemed whatever was happening at the ghost farm was not as nefarious as imagined. Following a tunnel from a trapdoor, the party found itself embedded in a vast network of caverns beneath the farm. A living community filled with ghouls and humans. It was the home of the Slags, descendants of a pre-war militia which adapted to underground life in the generations since the Great War. In the Slags, they found a peaceful people. The grisly props were meant to ward off would-be thieves, rightfully distrustful of outsiders. While they had an abundance of food and water, they had dire need for other trade goods, such as medicine. And so, the Chosen One and Sulik brokered an agreement between Modoc and the Slags. Win-win cooperation that would keep both communities thriving for generations to come. And the party became venerated legends in Modoc as unwitting heroes who saved the town from certain collapse. Sadly, the merchant Joe's promise of information about the GECK went unfulfilled. Nothing more than a desperate trick to enlist their aid. Finally, the party said goodbye to Modoc and continued its journey to Vault City.
Hey boss, Sulik's glaring at me again.
That be funny, friend. At least Grampy won't think so.
The problem is that all outsiders wish to join our society, which is simply not feasible. We would undoubtedly sink into the same anarchy which plagues the outside.
The politics of Vault City were foreign to both Sulik and the Chosen One, but Vic was a great aid to the pair in navigating them. Outside the city gates sat a slum known as the Courtyard, where the area's poorest residents lived in near squalor, but with the protection of Vault City's security from the dregs of the wasteland. The party was able to find the Brahmin dealer, but he couldn't remember where he'd gotten the Holy 13 flask. Perhaps somewhere down south. He did speak, however, of a vault within the city limits. Could this be the vault of the Chosen One's ancestor? And if not, might they know its location? The party had to get inside Vault City. The customs officer's jaw nearly dropped to the floor when the Chosen One approached him.
You're wearing an original vault suit.
The Chosen One was given a day pass to Vault City and told to see the first citizen at once. The city behind the Great Walls was unlike anything they'd seen, filled with trinkets and gadgets of the old world from the before time. Citizens lounged about in their familiar blue suits, while so-called servants did all the work. Vault City's Servant program forced residents of the outskirts into the servitude of the city's wealthiest residents. They swept the streets, tended the landscape, cooked and cleaned for their masters. Slavers with blue jumpsuits and smiles. And the citizens treated the party with contempt and disgust, making cruel comments and rude gestures in their presence. And then there was the vault. A massive hole bore into great stone. The type of place the Chosen One had heard about all his life, but never seen. He stepped forward in awe, but the grumbling guards would not let him pass. The Central Council was like a great chieftain's hut on the north side of town, where the Vault City leadership towered above their citizens, where they ruled the outlying areas with an iron fist. It was here the travelers would find Lynette, so-called First Citizen, and the leader of Vault City.
You're wearing a vault suit. I never imagined I would meet an inhabitant of another vault. This Vault 13, where is it located? What are you talking about? You must be mistaken. Whatever vault dweller you're speaking of must be from some other vault.
The Chosen One would not find the Holy 13 in Vault City, and neither a GECK. The dwellers of this vault had used their own Garden of Eden creation kit to build the city. And as for the location of his ancestors' vault...
Perhaps some mention of your vault is in our computer archives. But only citizens are allowed to access the archives. You may speak with Proconsul Gregory. He has authority to administer the citizenship test. Or There is another way to become a citizen. Rather than taking the test, you could prove your commitment to the vaults in a more substantial way. As an outsider, you are in a unique position to resolve a difficult situation for us. There's a town, if you could call it that, to the northeast of our city. It is filled with creatures that are polluting the groundwater with dangerous radiation. Those things are operating a damaged atomic power plant. You see, they are immune to radiation. They don't care that they are slowly killing us with their poisons. Disable their plant permanently, so that they cannot cause any more damage.
Unable to pass the Vault City citizenship test, and with no other leads, the Chosen One headed to the Ghoul village of Gecko, unsure of what dangers lie ahead. But in Gecko, the party found no threats. Instead, a peaceful settlement filled with outcasts just trying to survive. And the long-lived leaders of the village recognized the Chosen One's vault suit, for they had known the Vault Dweller for his heroism in the wasteland so long ago. Harold, who was not a ghoul but certainly a mutant, and Lenny, his trusted assistant with old-world healing powers, who encountered the Vault Dweller in Necropolis and regretted not joining his quest.
Later, I heard that the Vault Dweller had fixed our water system. The Vault Dweller saved us. All of us. Do you understand? It didn't matter that we were ghouls. For once, it didn't matter. We were people again, worth saving.
The Chosen One explained the predicament with Vault City, and it came as no surprise to Harold.
We need a hydroelectric magnetosphere regulator, and it needs to be installed soon, or we have got some real problems. If we don't get it, you can bet those boneheads from Vault City will shut down our power plant permanently. Vault City doesn't play nice. They'll just come up here and kill all of us if we don't get that part. They shoot ghouls on sight. Makes conversation a bit tricky. Well, at least I'll have a tree for a monument.
Why do we condone slavery? The system has been in place for many years, and it works quite well. Both parties benefit from the institution.
Back in Vault City, the party hoped to convince the frigid first citizen to help Gecko repair its power plant. But the temperamental leader was driven by a bloodlust that could only be satiated by the town's eradication.
Fixing Gecko's plant won't solve anything. Those creatures, they cannot be trusted. What happens when their plant starts leaking again?
With Lynette blinded by hatred, the party had to seek other means to fix Gecko's reactor. In Councilman McClure, they found a rational leader willing to help.
Stopping the radiation poisoning is all I care about. If you fix their plant, I'll give you citizenship, and there's not a damn thing she can do about it.
With McClure's help, they acquired the part needed to fix the power plant and stopped in the Courtyard Tavern before heading to Gecko.
Ain't seen you around before, stranger. Name's Cassidy. I run this place.
The tavern keeper, a grizzled old wastelander called Cassidy, had grown tired of Vault City's heavy hand.
A guard patrol broke in here looking for illegal substances. They busted down the door, busted up my stock, and then busted up a few of my customers too. I'm expecting the guards to come knocking again soon just to bust my chops.
The Chosen One explained his quest, and Cassidy agreed to join the party, where he would serve valiantly for the rest of the adventure. Back in Gecko, the party set to work on fixing the reactor. After many hours and much frustration, they were able to direct the maintenance robot to install the part. And Gecko had been saved for now from the bloodthirst of Vault City's mercurial leader.
You are something, just like the original Vault Dweller.
A grateful Lenny, inspired by the efforts of Sulik and the Chosen One, and no longer wanting to live with regret, joined the party, where his healing abilities would prove invaluable over the course of their travels. The party said goodbye to Harold and the tree growing from his head and headed back to Vault City, where they would be called citizens.
Don't want people mistaking me for old Bone Nose over there. I ain't ever seen no tribal do something as dumb as jam a bone in his nose.
Friend with all the spirits walking with me. Not afraid to travel anywhere.
Finally able to access the vault, the party searched high and low for any information about the Holy 13. They rummaged through dozens of storage rooms, spoke with all the facility's workers, and checked every single computer machine located inside the vault, only to come up empty-handed. The Vault of Vault City held no wisdom of the Holy 13, and once again, their quest had gone cold. And while the travelers were making quite a name for themselves across the wastes, they seemed to be solving everyone's problems except for their own. And so, the party was forced to move on. But first, a trip back to the den. With the help of Vic's estranged daughter in Vault City and a resourceful mechanic in Gecko, the travelers had managed to acquire the part to fix the Highwayman, which would allow them to travel the wasteland at much greater speeds and to carry more supplies. And in the old world, it was often said, "Nothing can stop a Highwayman."
Grandpa won't say things can be made good, but help needs come from outside.
The mining town of Redding was one of several locations the party learned about while in Vault City. With no other leads, our travelers hoped to find someone who might know of the vaults. But Redding was a dead end. No GECK and no knowledge of any other vaults could be found here. In Vault City, the party had learned shipments from Redding had slowed in recent months, and once there, it was easy to see why. The miners of Redding suffered from the scourge of addiction. A new type of drug called jet had emerged in the wasteland. Its effects were short-lived, but its addictive grip was permanent. With no cure for the jet addiction plaguing Redding, the future of the city and its mining operations looked bleak. Here the party learned that Redding was caught in the midst of a political tug-of-war between the major powers of the region, Vault City, New Reno, and a name very familiar to our tribe, the New California Republic. Each power also had embedded leaders within Redding. Marge, proprietor of the Cocoa Leaf Mine, supported the NCR, while so-called Dangerous Dan of the Morning Star Mine backed New Reno and its drug pushers. And finally, Painless Doc Johnson, Redding's soul healer, happily espoused the virtue of Vault City and its slavery by another name to anyone who would listen. It was believed that New Reno was responsible for flooding Redding with jet in an effort to take control of the town and the great hoards of gold held in its mines. But Sulik and the Chosen One would not help decide the fate of Redding on this day. Needing more time to evaluate the political landscape of the wasteland and not wanting to get distracted from their quest for the Holy 13. The party aided the wounded sheriff in some small matters, taking care of a rogue street gang and assisting an old widow with her housing problem before saying goodbye to Redding for now.
Now, anybody's welcome here, long as they act right. Others might not think much of us, but nobody's more free than we are.
Broken Hills lay to the south and east of Redding, a quiet but busy community that supplied uranium fuel to much of the wasteland. Unlike many of the places they'd seen on their travels, Broken Hills was a mixed community. Humans, ghouls, and even mutants lived and worked in relative harmony. The leader of Broken Hills was the sheriff, a super mutant called Marcus, and a remnant of the Master's army which the Vault Dweller had destroyed so long ago.
The original Vault Dweller? You mean the one who killed the Master and destroyed the vats? Not a problem. Like I said, that was a long time ago.
Marcus founded the town some decades prior around the old world uranium mine, along with a human companion from the Brotherhood of Steel.
After the Master and the vats were destroyed, I wandered a bit. No place to go. One day got attacked by this fool wearing power armor. And that was Jacob, from the Brotherhood of Steel. We tussled for a while. Probably a day or two. After a while, we just started laughing. What was the point? And we became friends. Headed off together. Then, other people started following us. Guess they figured if they weren't safe with a mutie and a steel knight, safe just wasn't going to happen.
The mutant sheriff did not know the location of any vaults, but he did agree to travel with the party if they could help resolve some local matters. Things in Broken Hills weren't as rosy as they first appeared, and a tension was brewing beneath the surface between the various races. A small group of humans had formed an underground anti-mutant crusade, plotting to rid Broken Hills of all mutants. And the mine's air purifier had broken down, bringing the mining operation to a halt and putting the future of the town in jeopardy. And if that wasn't bad enough, a number of human residents had gone missing, seemingly disappearing overnight. With a bit of trickery, our travelers managed to embed themselves in the conspiracy. The leaders of this movement wanted the party to break their accomplices out of prison and initiate their plan to destroy the mine. Their success would mean the end not only for the mutants of Broken Hills, but for the town itself. But the party foiled their scheme and put the bumbling revolutionaries behind bars. While searching the mines, the party found the missing residents, just not in the way they'd hoped. Slaughtered, every last one of them. A note on one of the bodies led them to a mutant called Francis, who admitted to killing the citizens but claimed self-defense. Francis had discovered the group plotting to destroy the mine, potentially killing dozens of mutant residents. Rather than turn to Marcus, he took justice into his own hands, preemptively slaughtering all of them on sight. And for this, Francis would face permanent exile from Broken Hills, out on his own to roam the wasteland, where he was never heard from nor seen again. As for our travelers, they tried and failed to fix the mine's air purifier, but it would need a new part. And after discussing it with the mine's foreman, they set off for the decadent land of New Reno to acquire the replacement.
Grampy Bones said this place full of bad people. So many young maidens to tell our travels to, and so little time.
New Reno was like an assault on the senses. From every direction, sights, sounds, and even smells that Sulik and the Chosen One had never experienced before. Peddlers of various poisons lined every street corner, hiding not in the shadows, but openly conducting their trade in plain sight. And dozens of young women stumbled about the street, eager to sell themselves for another hit of jet. The party learned that, like the Den, New Reno had no guards or government, But the den was small time. New Reno was the epicenter, the capital of sin. Instead of street gangs, New Reno was led by several groups of smaller tribes called families, which controlled specific areas and industries in the city. First, there was the Mordinos, who operated from the Desperado Casino and controlled most of the drug trade within the city, manufacturing their poison in a secret lab on its outskirts. And the Bishop tribe, which operated the largest casino in all of New Reno, the Shark Club. It was said that the bishops were politically savvy, running influence operations as far north as Vault City. Then there were the Salvatores, who carried energy weapons and feuded with all the other tribes like spoiled children. And finally, the Rights, which controlled the flow of alcohol in the region and were said to be the weakest of all the New Reno tribes. Following the foreman's instructions, the party acquired the replacement part for the mine ventilator from a merchant called Renesco and set off to return to Broken Hills. But the Highwayman was gone. In the short period of time it had taken them to walk through the west side of the city, it and all of their supplies had been stolen. Following the trail left behind by its wheels, the party tracked the path of the thieves and found themselves outside an old-world garage, a place called the Chop Shop.
Oh shit, friend.
Sulik and the Chosen One tried to approach the situation peacefully, but the encounter soon turned into an all-out war.
Friend, you ever wonder if there's more bad people than bullets?
With the replacement part, the party was able to fix the broken air purifier. Disaster had been averted and Broken Hills saved. Mining operations resumed shortly thereafter, ensuring communities like Gecko would continue to receive uranium fuel. And with things settled in Broken Hills, Marcus agreed to join the party on their quest to find the Holy 13.
You want me to come along with you? What the hell? I'm too old to settle down. We going now? Well, my memories of being a human aren't as clear as they once were. But I remember pettiness, hatred, jealousy. I prefer being a mutant.
Yeah, you may be ugly outside, but you're way cool inside.
Damn it, Lenny. You need a bath or some disinfectant.
Oh. Sorry, Cacacity.
Sulik and the Chosen One had amassed a small army of followers, but were no closer to finding a GECK or the Holy Vault 13. And with no other leads, our travelers returned to the City of Sin. The Mordino tribe was led by a father-son duo, Little Jesus and Big Jesus. And they were quite forthcoming about their plans of enslaving the town of Redding with crippling jet addiction. Because the currency of the area was then backed by gold, he who controlled Redding wielded a great power over the entire region. With a bit of sleuthing, the party learned the location of the Mordino Jet Lab, located on the outskirts of New Reno, in a place called the Stables. Here the Mordino henchmen manufactured their potions and poisons, even performing cruel experiments on slave labor. The party also learned that the sudden appearance of Jet was due to some child prodigy called Myron, who it is said was as skilled in the ways of chemistry as some in the old world.
You stupid? Jet, motherfucker, Jet! Here talking to its maker, its creator, its god. You see, old Jesus Mordino wanted something that the Redding miners would get addicted to fast and make them work harder. So I said, no prob, right? They give me horse, cash, drugs, my own lab. They're my patrons. They're alright, I guess. The Mordinos don't show Myron the RESPECT, right? I tell them what they should be doing. They say, shut up, Myron.
Unhappy with his treatment by the tribe, our travelers convinced the petulant youth to leave the stables, effectively putting an end to the Mordinos' jet conspiracy in one fell swoop.
Why the hell not? Let's blow this popsicle stand.
In due time, this would drastically weaken the Mordinos in New Reno and have long-term consequences for all of New California.
Grampy Bones say we be stacking up the bad karma just being near you.
Oh, so what was that, like tribal humor? Yeah, hardy har har, pretty fucking funny.
In the right tribe, Sulik and the Chosen One found a slightly less bloodthirsty clan who preferred to isolate themselves from the rest of New Reno. The Wrights were the city's largest producer of booze and controlled the flow of alcohol in much of the region. But the tribe was in a period of mourning. One of the chieftain's many sons, Richard, had died of an apparent jet overdose. Because the tribe abstained from jet and other such poisons, the party was tasked with finding the drug pusher responsible. Talking with prominent dealers in New Reno went nowhere. Just a circular loop of finger-pointing and blame. But upon investigating Richard's grave, the party discerned a familiar smell. Rat scorpion venom. The Wright youth had not died of an overdose, but had been poisoned. The party returned to Renesco armed with this new information, and this time, he was more forthcoming. Renesco did not sell jet to Richard Wright, but he did fulfill a special order for the Salvatores. Jet laced with rat scorpion venom. The scattered dealer had been used, nothing more than a pawn in a political game. It turns out that the Salvatores poisoned the young Wright in hopes of pinning it on the Mordinos and starting a war between the tribes to ultimately increase their own power in the city. At the behest of the Wright tribe elder, our travelers pacified the Salvatores, eliminating the tribe from the New Reno political landscape for good. And for this, they were rewarded handsomely by the Wright tribe and called made men. Back in Vault City, our travelers had encountered a mad preacher within the city gates who spoke loudly against its slavery. He gave the party a package, which they agreed to deliver to the leader of the Bishop tribe in New Reno. The Bishop tribe was based in the Shark Club Casino and considered the second most powerful tribe in the city, behind the Mordinos.
Why, hello there, beautiful. What can Myron do for you?
Unlike the other tribes, the bishops paid much attention to the politics of the wasteland. They had no appetite for the anarchy plaguing New Reno, instead concerning themselves with pushing the city into an alliance with the new California Republic. The bishops employed spies in most major cities and played a large role in both disputes and cooperation. And the preacher was merely one of these agents, promoting annexation and sowing discord within Vault City. The Bishop Patriarch, a short and pudgy man called John, had been hired by the NCR to persuade Vault City to join its ranks. But there was more than met the eye. Bishop had hired mercenaries to terrorize Vault City, in hopes of its leadership succumbing to calls for NCR annexation. Unwittingly, the party had been drawn into a larger conflict that would shape New California for generations to come. It was here their destination became clear: if they were to find answers about the Holy 13 or a GECK, they would find them in the NCR. And so, after an unexpected encounter with Bishop's wife, which would unknowingly change the fate of the wasteland, our travelers set off for the new California Republic.
We and I think your little head be doing all the thinking.
The new California Republic is dedicated to bringing peace, security, and justice to the people of the Great West. NCR's fine police forces patrol and arrest raiders, cannibals, slavers, and lawless mutants, and the NCR Army valiantly protects the borders against outside marauders. In the words of President Tandy, a safe people is a strong people. There's a wonderful future ahead, and it could be yours with the new California Republic.
The Chosen One heard much of Shady Sands from the tribe's elder, but the legends described a quaint farming community. The capital of the NCR was now anything but that. A massive sprawling city with well-armed militia and guards perched upon every corner. And the bustling vestige of Shady Sands was merely the gateway into a much larger network of states, places the Chosen One knew from the tales of the Vault Dwellers' travels. The LA Boneyard, the Hub, and the area once known as Lost Hills, among others. And at these halls of Congress, where the leaders practiced a form of law called democracy, a giant stone carving of a man wearing a vault suit which looked much like the Chosen One, the Vault Dweller, honored and revered by the NCR for his heroism in the wasteland. And at the head of the NCR government sat the very same Tandy that the Vault Dweller rescued so long ago.
Lord, that was a long time ago. Hardly remember who I was then. Just a naive girl. If we're talking about the same person, he saved my life, then vanished. We made him a hero.
Tandy did not know the location of Vault 13. Her father Aradesh had searched high and low, but could never find it. She did, however, know the location of another vault, number 15, the ancestral home to the people of Shady Sands.
We need some computer parts from our old base, Vault 15. A couple of years ago, some squatters moved in and built a shantytown on the surface. They call it the Squat. They can't get into the vault, but they keep us out.
Having grown tired of his incessant vulgar ramblings, the party left Myron in the care of some locals before heading off to Vault 15.
Oh, are you fucking serious? Whoa, hey. Okay, I'll wait here. Whew. You could show me a little more respect, you know. I am Myron. I'd sooner lick Lenny's wrinkled balls.
We call this place the Squat because it was settled by the homeless. It's not much, but it's all we have. To the west, there's a city called the NCR. They've known about us for some time and never offered us help. Now, they're claiming this area is their ancestral home and they want it back.
President Tandy's description of the Squat proved true. It was a hopeless place, filled with a desperate and idle people. Before the party could even get the lay of the land, they were accosted by a flustered mother whose daughter had recently gone missing. No answers were to be found in the village, but in the forests behind the Squat, our travelers found a separate camp, and it was occupied by vicious raiders. After taking care of the hoodlums, the party rescued the missing daughter, who had been held in captivity and repeatedly taken advantage of by the raiders. and the grateful villagers came clean about the squat. They were covering for a man called Darion, who claimed to be trying to restore the vault's operations, all the while hiding his raider affiliations. And they agreed to cooperate with the NCR if our travelers would take care of the crooked leader and his henchmen. Easily talking their way through the facility's unorganized security, the party found themselves face to face with Darion, a wrinkled old man with many decades on his face. As it turned out, the paranoid leader had been part of an age-old raider gang that called itself the Great Khans and terrorized the citizens of Shady Sands before the fearless vault dweller showed up and ended their reign of chaos. Darion, the sole survivor of the Great Khans, spent decades plotting his revenge against Tandy and Shady Sands and living in fear that the vault dweller would return to kill him. And it turned out he was right. The Chosen One finished the job his ancestor started, wiping out the last of the Great Khans from New California. And the leaders of the NCR were grateful, rewarding the party handsomely for their efforts. And what had been known as the Squat soon turned into a thriving NCR settlement where generations of villagers lived and flourished around the vault, which became an important location for the NCR military. Our travelers found no trace of the GECK in Vault 15. But finally, in exploring the computer machine archives, they had learned the location of the Holy 13, located just a few moons' travel from the NCR. And so, once again, the party ventured forth, hoping their long and arduous quest for the GECK was finally coming to an end.
Chosen, do you hear me? The village dies. All of our futures die too. We have little left in both time and essence. Hurry.
It was understandable that NCR expeditions could never find the elusive Vault 13. The entrance to the vault was embedded deep in a cave tucked away within the towering western mountain range. And it was here that the Chosen One walked the very ground which his ancestor had walked some 80 years prior. First to embark on a quest to save his home from outright collapse, and finally to find himself exiled, forced to wander the wastelands alone. And what of the dwellers of the Holy 13? Would they welcome him as the descendant of a hero or of a villain? Were they even alive? Not even in his wildest dreams could the Chosen One foresee the true answers to these questions. Upon entering the vault doors, the party was greeted not by a friendly face in a blue jumpsuit, but by a savage and menacing Deathclaw. Each of the party sprung for their weapons, ready to turn the beast into a lifeless, bloody mess. But the creature held its clawed hands up in a gesture of peace, and then it opened its mouth. And what came out was not a grunt or a growl, but words. Distinctly human words.
Do not fear me, human. I do not intend to harm you. I am Gruthar, the leader of this Deathclaw pack.
These articulate Deathclaws had established an organized settlement within the vault, occupied by both human and claw alike. They welcomed and protected outsiders, treated prisoners with compassion, and posed no threat to the surrounding cities and villages. But how did this come to happen? As our tribe knows all too well, Deathclaws are not a peaceful race, and certainly not skilled in the spoken word. Talking with a robed Deathclaw scholar called Goris, the party learned their origin. More than a year prior, the Holy 13 was indeed stocked with the descendants of the original Vault Dwellers. Following the exile of the Chosen One's heroic ancestor, the citizens of Vault 13 voted to condemn the bastard overseer, swiftly executed him, and then acquired a powerful computer machine from the Brotherhood of Steel to administer the vault. And life in the Holy 13 went on in the usual way for many decades to come, until the day the all-clear signal arrived. The citizens frantically prepared for the vault's opening, hopeful but unsure of what await them on the outside. But the remnants of the government which commissioned the vaults, once called America, but now called the Enclave, welcomed the vault dwellers not with warm greetings, but with a rampage of machine guns. And many were slaughtered on that day. Those that weren't killed were captured and taken prisoner. It was the first time our travelers had heard the name of the great tribe of death. But early in their journey, before the party made it to Vault City, they had encountered some strange individuals in menacing armor of power, much like the armor the Chosen One had heard about from the Vault Dwellers' travels with the Brotherhood of Steel. But this group was most decidedly not the Brotherhood, and they executed an entire family, women and children included, before vanishing deep into the desert. Goris told the party that the Enclave had been experimenting on the Death Claws with the so-called FEV, the very potion which the Master had used to build his army of super mutants before the Vats were destroyed by the Vault Dweller. And in these experiments emerged a new race of highly intelligent Deathclaws capable of speech. So intelligent, in fact, that they realized if the true scope of their capabilities was known, their lives would be endangered. And so, the FEV Deathclaws played dumb under the watch of their devilish masters, acting the part of subservient and obedient creatures. Left behind in the Holy 13 following the assault to ward off would-be scavengers, and with the aid of the voice-controlled computer machine, they rapidly established their community. And in Vault 13, our travelers were rewarded with the crown jewel of their adventure, the Garden of Eden creation kit, the Holy Gecko. Finally, after a year-long arduous trek through the wasteland, from the village of Klamath to the sprawling empire of the NCR, the Chosen One had acquired the device to save Arroyo. And so, joined by the ever-curious Goris, the party hit the desolate roads once more and began their long journey back to the place where our story began. In Arroyo, the Chosen One hoped to be called Hero, a champion who fulfilled prophecies of the olden times and left a legacy worthy of his descent. But nothing of the sort would happen on the fateful day the party returned to Arroyo. All that was left of the tribe was nothing more than a scattering of dismembered body parts and smoldering ash piles where once stood mighty huts. And buried beneath piles of debris in front of the tribe's destroyed bridge, the Chosen One found Hakunin, the village shaman.
Chosen, the shadow of darkness arrived before you. A rush of wind came. On it were great dragonflies that spat flame. Evil men crawled from the beasts' bellies and brought death to our warriors. All were dead or taken. Chosen, you must seek the fold of the Dark Ones and rescue our people. You are the Chosen. You must do. Thank the ancestors. Now my soul may join the eternal song. Safe journey, Chosen.
For as much as the Chosen One felt a need to stop and mourn the loss of his beloved Arroyo, there simply wasn't time. Many of his tribal brethren, including the village elder, were still alive, taken prisoner by the Enclave. But to where and why? The answer lies somewhere to the south. And so, our travelers said goodbye to the ruins of Arroyo and headed back into the heart of the wasteland.
Grampy boys say they all standing on the great water. Doesn't make sense to we and I either.
The party sought to retrace their steps through the lands to tie up loose ends and look for clues to the location of the Arroyo tribe captives. In Redding, they found no such clues, but with their allegiance firmly tilted toward the new California Republic, they sought to help Marge, owner of the Cocoa Wheat Mine, to acquire an excavator chip to expand her operations. The party cleared out the abandoned mine of the unwanted occupants known as Wanamingos and recovered the chip, thus solidifying the future of Redding away from the new Reno drug pushers and toward the NCR. Back in the Republic, Goris felt a sudden need to check on his brethren in the vault, and so he left the party for the time being to return to the Holy 13. Sadly, no answers about the Arroyo tribe prisoners were to be found in the NCR, nor any information of substance about the Enclave, just the occasional rumor about flying machines or wild speculation.
Why don't you ditch the tribal? Looks like he takes being a bonehead too seriously.
You want me to put a bullet in Myron's head? It'd be no trouble. Just give the word.
Walk the quiet way and learn much.
Our travelers found an underground group called the Rangers, which sought to eradicate slavery from all of the lands. And so, they continued their war against the scourge of slavery in the wastes, helping the Rangers by wiping out the slavers operating just outside of NCR territory, freeing dozens of captives in the process. With things settled in the NCR, the party headed back to Vault 13 to check on Goris. But the vault they found was not the one they left. Silence echoed throughout the entirety of the cavernous steel structure. Where once stood mighty deathclaws, now sat tepid pools of blood. Even the creche was a victim of this barbarous assault. The party found a solemn Goris hunched in the corner of the research wing, and he pointed them to the computer machine's video recording of the event which had transpired.
You are the last, Gruthar. The stain of your kind soon shall be wiped clean.
You tell your so-called president that he will burn for this.
Whatever. You were never anything more than a talking animal.
That may be, but we were created through your experimentation. You gave us life.
And now I give you death. Take his body. The doctor wanted a specimen.
It had become increasingly clear that rescuing the Chosen One's tribesmen was no longer their primary quest. No, that wouldn't be enough. The party would have to destroy this great devil of the wastes, and at any cost. Following a tip from Goris, our travelers found themselves at an abandoned military outpost to the west of Vault 13. They infiltrated the ruined base, and once inside, its history was clear. This was the very Mariposa base that the Vault Dweller destroyed on his quest to stop the Master. And in more recent times, the Enclave had been here. The remnants of their presence were scattered throughout the fortress. After taking care of some rogue super mutants holed up in the barracks, the party found an Enclave survey map of the region, and with it, a new location, San Francisco. Their final destination had become clear. If they were to find answers about the Enclave or the Chosen One's captured villagers, they would find them in the city by the bay. Compared to the rest of the wasteland, San Francisco felt a bit out of place, as if it came to be in complete isolation. The city was occupied by several factions, but most notably the She, the descendants of survivors from an underwater vessel called a submarine, who founded the city around the mostly intact settlement called Chinatown, which was said to remind them much of their homeland. Led by their mysterious emperor, the She eventually allowed other groups to settle on its outskirts. The Hubologists, a religious group which followed the strange ways of an old world teller of fantastical tales. The ever-idle tanker vagrants, which occupied a docked ship on the north side of the city and mostly kept to themselves. And finally, the famed Brotherhood of Steel maintained an outpost in the southwestern portion of the city. The Chosen One and Sulik had encountered similar Brotherhood outposts before, both in the Den and in the NCR. But they had never been able to get any information of note from any of the Brotherhood officials. But this time, the Brotherhood was more forthcoming. The outpost leader, an intelligence operative called Matthew, told the party that the group had waned into complacency in recent years, following decades where they had established themselves as the technological masters of the wasteland, even cooperating with other groups like the NCR. And this was the case until the Enclave showed up. With their vertibird flying machines, advanced power armor, and devastating energy weapons, the Enclave had proven to be technologically superior to the Brotherhood. And with their willingness to engage in the drug trade, slavery, and murder, it was clear they did not share the Brotherhood's values. Lacking the aptitude or manpower to challenge the Enclave, the Brotherhood turned inward, maintaining a low profile to gather intel. But Sulik and the Chosen One had an opportunity to tilt the scales against this fiendish newcomer. The Brotherhood was aware of an Enclave base far to the north, a place called Navarro. But the scouts the group had sent to investigate never returned. If our travelers could infiltrate the base and retrieve schematics for the vertibird flying machines, the Brotherhood would be better equipped to help the party take on the bastards and save the Arroyo captives. And so, the Chosen One set off on a solo mission to Navarro, finding himself all alone for the first time since our adventure began. A disguised Chosen One entered the abandoned Old World gas station outside Navarro, convincing the robed sentry he was a fresh recruit that had just joined the Enclave. But upon entering the facility, the Chosen One was immediately accosted by an angry sergeant called Dornan, who berated him to seemingly no end for not wearing power armor.
Welcome to Camp Navarro. So you're the new replacement. You are out of uniform, soldier! Where is your power armor? Don't have any? You expect me to believe that, maggot? The truth is, you lost an expensive piece of Army-issue equipment. That suit is going to come out of your pay, and you will remain in this man's army until you are 510 years old, which is the number of years it will take for you to pay for a Mark II powered combat armor you have lost. Report to the armory and have a new suit issued to you, then report back to me, Private! Dismissed!
The Chosen One retrieved a massive metal suit from the armory and was ordered to stand guard outside the vertibird maintenance wing.
Outstanding. Proceed on the double to the hangar, where you will stand guard duty. You will do a fine job. Do you understand? I am not his sir. I work for a living, you moron. You will call me Sergeant or Sergeant Dornan. Do you understand me?
Where he stood motionless as the hostile sergeant made his rounds through the base. And any attempt to evade his post led to a thorough verbal thrashing.
Trooper, what are you doing here? Get back to your guard post!
Finally finding a moment to slip away, the Chosen One was able to explore the underground facility and learn more about this evil empire called the Enclave. As it turned out, Navarro was not its headquarters. It was just one of many facilities the Devils operated across the land, and it held no prisoners, save for a lone surviving FEV Deathclaw. The Chosen One learned the Enclave's main base was offshore of San Francisco, a former oil rig mounted in the heart of the Great Salt Water. And this was where they held their prisoners. Members of the Arroyo tribe, and perhaps surviving members of the Holy Vault 13. In skillfully looting Navarro, the Chosen One acquired great weapons and armor, which vastly exceeded those of the party's current stock. Such equipment would be needed in the fight ahead. And he also acquired a device known as a fob, which was marked as controlling a tanker ship. There was a tanker docked in San Francisco, occupied by vagrants. Could this be the key to reaching the Enclave base? In the underground facility, the Chosen One met an Enclave doctor called Schreiber, a sadistic man whose cruel experiments led to his superiors sound blocking his laboratory so the rest of the base didn't have to hear the torturous screams of his so-called patients. And in the corner of the lab stood a mechanically enhanced dog who was forced to watch these cruel experiments for months on end. This K-9, as he was called, bit the doctor after he tired of his terrible ways. And so, the doctor removed a crucial component from his mechanical system and disabled the dog's legs, forcing him to stand frozen in place, an unwilling witness to near constant horror. After confirming once again that the laboratory was soundproof, the Chosen One took aim and neutralized the bastard doctor. Under the ruse of performing an execution for Shrieper, the Chosen One freed the last of the FEV Deathclaws, a thankful beast called Zarn, who, without a pack, would wander the wastes alone, but free. In the Vertibird repair bay, a smooth-talking Chosen One found the blueprints coveted by the Brotherhood, as well as the component to allow K-9 to walk again. And so, the Chosen One and his newfound friend slipped quietly out of the facility, as the temperamental sergeant fumed and paced across the unforgiving asphalt.
If I see you away from your post again, it will be the sorriest day of your short life!
After dropping off K-9 in the NCR with a robot specialist called Dorothy, the Chosen One returned to San Francisco and reunited with his companions.
You be having us go with you now?
In exchange for a copy of the Vertibird schematics, Matthew allowed the party access to the Brotherhood bunker, where they acquired additional suits of power armor and even more weapons. Combined with the haul the Chosen One had acquired in Navarro, the party was now far better equipped than they had been at any point in their adventure. While they knew the location of the Enclave Oil Rig, reaching it was another matter. And so the party headed to the docked tanker, hoping the vagrants might know some way to get the ship moving. The tanker vagrants had two leaders, Captain Aaron Myers, a former member of the Enclave gone rogue, and Badger, a mechanic who specialized in computer machines and what they refer to as electronics. Captain Aaron established the community after deserting his post with the Enclave, having grown tired of their evil ways. And soon, the laid-back tanker settlement was filled with layabouts, musicians, and artists, all of which valued their personal freedom above all else, and many of whom refused to do any labor at all. The vagrants had been plagued with great beasts in the tanker's depths for some time. But the party cleared the area and rescued Badger's lover, a voluptuous and yellow-haired woman called Susie. Grateful for the party helping his friends, Captain Aaron was willing to assist them in getting to the Enclave's base. But while our travelers had already acquired crucial parts to operate the tanker, the ship would need old-world fuel to make the journey. And for that fuel, they would have to turn to San Francisco's ruling faction, the Shi. Ken Lee, assistant to the mysterious Shi Emperor, had a problem. The group's long-running conflicts with the Hubologist cultists had escalated, from backhanded diplomacy and influence operations to outright espionage. But in recent months, the Hubologists had been abducting and brainwashing their children into the strange ways of the cultists. And this proved the final straw for the Shi. Lee asked the party to assassinate the so-called AHS-9, the Great and Terrible, the leader of the Hubologist cult. And if they would do so, Lee would grant them access to the Shi Emperor, who surely would be willing to provide fuel for the tanker. With limited options and time running out, the party accepted and headed to the Hubologist base. Under the guise of joining the cult, the party was allowed to openly explore the Hubologist headquarters. And it turned out the group was just as strange as they'd heard. The Hubologists believed all beings were infected with so-called neurodynes, and that by soaking themselves in small waves of radiation, these supposed impurities could be cleansed from the body, allowing eventual travel to the stars of the great night sky, and there they would be reunited with their supposed starfather.
Greetings, new recruits.
I'm Vicky Goldman.
And I'm Juan Cruz.
We're celebrities, as you already know.
We think Hubology is the way to go.
We know. Hubology is the way to go.
I can fry bugs with my brain power.
And I look good in tinfoil hats.
Maybe if you work hard at optimizing yourself, you can associate with us.
We'd certainly like that.
Yes, we're always looking for new friends.
As long as they are willing to optimize themselves.
And are as high-ranking as we are!
We're AHS 5.
And you too can be AHS 5 someday.
If you donate lots of money, you can be AHS 5 even faster.
But don't think we only want you for the money.
No, we want to help you.
And that's what Hubology is all about.
After suffering through a presentation from the cult's celebrity advocates, Sulik and the Chosen One slipped through the facility and made their way to the offices of AHS 9. Although successful in neutralizing the cult leader, their attempts at subterfuge failed, and before long, the entire Hubologist base was at war with the party. By the time they were done, only the chill of silence walked the halls of the underground facility. And the entirety of the Hubology cult had been wiped clean from San Francisco. And Ken Lee kept his word. For eliminating the Hubologists, our travelers were rewarded with an audience with the She-Emperor. But much to their surprise, the Emperor was neither man nor beast. Instead, it was a powerful computer machine which aided the group in analyzing complex data and making logical decisions. Nevertheless, by talking to the She-Emperor, the party was able to route the necessary fuel to the tanker, removing their last impediment to reaching the Enclave. After nearly a year and a half of travel, Sulik and the Chosen One's journey through the wastes was finally coming to an end. Along the way, they had made many friends and many enemies, and they had shaped the destiny of the lands in ways they couldn't even conceive. But the time had come to lay everything on the line, and there was no turning back. The Enclave had to be stopped. For Arroyo and for all of New California.
Let's kick their asses, boss.
Grampy Bone saying we should be careful.
With his Enclave-issued power armor, the Chosen One knew he'd have an easy time infiltrating the facility. To avoid inciting suspicion, Sulik and the rest of the party waited behind in the entry hall. The Enclave base was a gargantuan and multi-leveled facility with high-tech gadgets and deadly mechanized turrets at every corner. Military officers stood tall and still in their stoic posture, uttering Enclave slogans as the Chosen One passed.
God bless America, soldier.
While Enclave civilians lounged about in jumpsuits very similar to vault dwellers and spoke of mundane topics such as the weather, while speaking glowingly of something called the Project, which they eagerly anticipated. It seemed that most of the Enclave had very little real-world experience with the wasteland, having spent most of their time living within the hulking steel walls of the oil rig. It didn't take long to arrive in the Research and Detention Wing, where the Chosen One found the remnants of the Arroyo tribe and the village elder.
Chosen One, how did you get here? Men came to our village in flying machines and took us. There were others too, from the Holy 13. I thought we were saved. I thought we were going to heaven. Then they brought us here, to hell. They have killed most of us with something they call FEV. They will kill us all before they are through. Go to the levels below us. Find the machine that makes power. Stop it and we can escape. The men here are not true to the Vault Dream. They are evil. If you destroy the machine, we will find the ship. Hurry, there are not many of us left.
Among the surviving imprisoned members of the Holy 13, the Chosen One met one called Martin, the former leader of the Vault. And here he learned more about the devious plot called the Project. The Enclave had kidnapped the dwellers of the Vault 13 and Arroyo to perform experiments, due to both groups sharing blood with the original Vault dwellers. And these tests and experiments were for an antidote to a biological weapon. A weapon the Enclave planned to unleash upon all of the wasteland, killing all inhabitants of the land so they could be resettled, and their so-called United States of America reborn. To free his people and stop the Enclave, the Chosen One would have to find the nuclear reactor powering the rig and destroy it. The Chosen One made his way to the executive level, and here he found himself face to face with the devil himself, the so-called President of the United States of America, the leader of the Enclave.
Hello, I'm the President of the United States of America, and you are... I am the elected representative of the people. The United States does still exist. God bless us, everyone. We've just had to adapt in order to survive after the war.
The President waxed poetic for what seemed like an eternity, covering the history of the Enclave and its emergence from the ruins of the former American government. And here, the Chosen One learned the true nature of the vaults commissioned by that government, for they were not what they seemed.
The vaults were set up to test humanity. Some had not enough food synthesizers. Others had only men in them, yet others were designed to open after only 6 months. They each had a unique set of circumstances designed to test the occupants.
On the subject of the project, the President was forthcoming about their sinister plans, a modified version of the FEV that would result in the utter destruction of all men, women, and mutants living in New California and beyond.
It's almost ready. Humanity's salvation is almost at hand, and the United States of America will be the progenitor of that rebirth. The only way for true humans and democracy to be safe is to cleanse the mutants from the globe. We humans will take back that which is rightfully ours.
But at this point, the conversation took a turn, as the president realized he was not talking to an Enclave citizen, but an outworld intruder.
Part of the president's job is to make the tough decisions. A lot of near-humans will sacrifice their lives for the return of humanity. Humans will prevail. No price is too high for the survival of the human race. If you were human, you'd feel the same way. But tests performed on your tribesmen have all shown that you are guilty of mutation, and it's a damn good thing the project is ready. Once again, America will be the world's policeman. Even killing me won't help you.
Neutralizing the Enclave's leader was an important step, but not nearly enough to stop the wheels in motion. The Enclave scientists were hours, if not minutes, away from releasing the deadly FEV agent, and the Chosen One had to work quickly. With no way of knowing how to operate the computer machine responsible for the reactor, the Chosen One threatened an Enclave researcher at gunpoint, and the trembling scientist triggered the shutdown as a silent stream ran down his leg, starting a 10-minute countdown before the reactor would blow, taking out the rig and everyone on it. Much to his surprise, he was able to slip through the facility undetected, making his way back to the entry hall to reunite with Sulik and his companions and prepare a return to the mainland.
Oh shit, friend.
But Frank Horrigan, the hulking Enclave officer they had encountered before, had other ideas.
You've gotten a lot farther than you should have, but then you haven't met Frank Horrigan either. Your ride's over, Mutie. Time to die.
be needing some time off. A little smoke, a little think.
I am proud of you, Chosen. You have overcome much.
With Horrigan defeated, President Richardson dead, and its base battered into a million pieces, the Enclave was no more. Remnants from Navarro would go on to wage small-time war against the NCR and Brotherhood of Steel. But all their efforts were in vain. And with no central leadership, this so-called America simply faded into obscurity. A faint memory which exists only within the minds of a few. And that is the way of war. Fierce, unforgiving, unchanging, and the history is written by its victors. But what of our heroes, those who dedicated themselves to saving these lands? Those who put everything on the line to stop this great devil of the wastes? The Chosen One reunited with the Arroyo refugees, building a new community with the aid of the Garden of Eden creation kit. The surviving members of the Holy 13 also joined this venture, reuniting two generations of the same bloodline. His mother, the Arroyo Elder, lived for several more years before passing away peacefully in her sleep, and the Chosen One became the new Elder, presiding over the village in the years to come, and leading it to great prosperity. After breaking paths with the Chosen One, Sulik returned home to our tribe before heading east to continue his search for Kurisu. Although his earthly body never returned, Sulik's spirit lives here with us to this day. Cassidy went on to search for his beloved Texas, breaking south through NCR and past Dayglow. At some point, he married a tribal and had a daughter, who it is said shared his affinity for whiskey and shotguns. Inspired by the example set by the Chosen One, Marcos eventually traveled across the Great Mountains, searching for other refugees from the Master's army. In the Mojave Wasteland, rumors persist of a fledgling mutant settlement called Jacobstown. Vic's fate following the Enclave's destruction is unknown, but it is believed he settled in Vault City, rekindling with his estranged daughter and tinkering with old-world gadgets. It is believed that Lenny returned to Gecko to serve as Harold's assistant for some time. Given the long lifespan of ghouls, he may still live to this day. Goris the Scholar wandered the wastes alone, tribeless, as one of the last of his kind, observing human society from a distance. He was never heard from again, and all tales of talking Deathclaws were passed on as speculative legend. Myron died less than a year after the defeat of the Enclave, stabbed by a jet addict while drinking in the den. His discovery of Jet was quickly forgotten, and the memory of his name was lost to history. K-9 was successfully repaired by Dorothy, but upon learning of his Enclave connection, the NCR government seized the mechanical dog for analysis. It is said he did not survive the disassembly process. With Metzger gone, slavery disappeared from the den. Becky's casino bar grew quickly, and Becky's reputation as an honest proprietor brought her the business needed to buy out her competition and expand. The den flourished, and it soon gained a reputation for being a tough but honest community. Relations between the Slags and residents of Modoc flourished. Between the two peoples, Modoc prospered and became a major farming community, supplying all the outlying regions with food. In the years to come, Vault City suffered greatly from raider attacks. The situation grew so desperate, The citizens were forced to request aid from the new California Republic. Within a month, a large detachment of the NCR's military was stationed in Vault City. The military presence quickly became an occupation force, and Vault City became the first of NCR's border territories. Repairing Gecko's power plant prevented any further radioactivity from leaking into Vault City's groundwater. Though this eased tensions between the two communities, they still maintain an uneasy truce. Mentions of Harold are still heard in the wastes from time to time. It is said the tree growing from his head has gotten larger, and if rumors are to be believed, fruit is growing from it. The seeds are said to be remarkably tough, and several of them have taken root even in the most barren stretches of the wasteland. Not long after the destruction of the Enclave, the Bishop family of New Reno was blessed with a child. This child seemed to have little in common with the bishops, preferring instead to spend his days exploring the wastes. When he turned 13, he seized control of the bishops and led them to victory over the remaining New Reno families. And the bishop tribe rose to prominence, forming a strong political alliance with the new California Republic and Vault City. Several years after acquiring the excavator chip, Marge of the Cocoa Leaf Mine was able to purchase and control the other Redding mines. She was an easy choice for mayor, and using her new political power, led Redding to join the growing new California Republic in return for a seat in the NCR's Hall of Congress. With the destruction of the conspiracy to kill the mutants, Broken Hills began to thrive. Then the uranium ran out. The city, having lost its sole reason for existing, slowly dispersed. The residents carried their riches with them, leaving the place a windswept, desolate ghost town. A few holdouts remained, attempting to eke out a pathetic existence, but eventually, they too disappeared. Our travelers' help with Vault 15 launched the new California Republic's push to civilize its neighbors. Though there were many more obstacles to overcome, the NCR now had a foothold into the northern wastes, continuing to expand its territory for generations to come. In San Francisco, the Shi flourished, creating a botanical scourge on the radiation surrounding their beloved town. Though this vine could not grow in other soils, the Shi took care to nourish it in their lands. They continued to grow in strength and prominence, forming the basis of a new empire. As for the tanker vagrants, as vagrants do, they drifted on. Due to disagreements over how technology should be controlled in the wasteland, the Brotherhood of Steel waged a long and bloody war against the new California Republic. Despite superior equipment and training, the Brotherhood suffered heavy losses and went into retreat. The destruction of the Enclave erased all trace of President Richardson from history. Even to this day, the title of president is used as a boogeyman to frighten children.